I refused to stop cooking bacon in my kitchen due to my teenage daughter's vegan lifestyle, and the refusal turned into the most consequential parenting decision I made in her teenage years. And I want to tell you about the woman who showed up at our house in month 7 of the standoff to explain why my daughter had actually been doing this. My daughter is named Ren. Ren is 17. Ren became vegan a year ago. Ren did not become vegan the way teenagers usually do. Ren became vegan in a way that suggested something else was going on underneath. The escalation was specific. Month 1, Ren asked me to not cook bacon when she was home. Month 2, she asked me to not cook bacon at all. Month 3, she asked me to not bring meat into the house. Month 4, she stopped eating dinner with the family. Month 5, she started crying at the table when there was meat present. Month 6, she told her school counselor that her father was emotionally abusive because he refused to accommodate her dietary needs. I had been not stopping the bacon for a specific reason. The reason was that Ren was doing something that had been not about food. The veganism had been the surface. If I gave up the bacon, I was treating the surface as the actual problem. The actual problem would have remained and would have moved to something else. I want to take you back to month 5 because that was the night I almost broke. Ren was across from me. I had made pork chops that night. And she sat down because she had still been sitting down for dinner at that point. She looked at the plate. She did not yell. She did not slam anything. She just looked at the plate and her eyes filled up with tears. They came slow, like she was trying to hold them in, but her body would not let her. I sat across from her and I felt the full weight of what I was doing. I felt like a monster. I felt like every bad father in every story anyone has ever told, but I also felt something else. I felt like the crying was about something I could not see yet. So I looked at her and I said, "Ren, talk to me. Tell me what is actually wrong." She did not answer right away. She pushed her chair back from the table. She stood up and looked at me with this face that was wet and red and so tired. She said, "You already know what is wrong. You just do not care." Then she turned around and went to her room and closed the door. I sat at that table alone for a long time. The pork chops got cold, and for the first time in 5 months, I questioned myself for real. I wondered if I was doing actual damage to my kid. I wondered if years from now Ren would sit in some office and tell someone that her father watched her cry and did nothing. The next morning, Ren did not come to breakfast. I went upstairs and knocked on her door. Through the door, she said, "I am not eating with you anymore. Not until you stop." I said, "Ren, I will stop cooking bacon the second you tell me why it matters this much." She went quiet. The silence lasted so long I thought she was not going to answer. Then she said, "Because I asked you to. That should be enough." I stood outside that door and I knew in my bones that it was not enough. Month 6 arrived and it brought the phone call that changed everything. I was at work. My phone rang and the number was from the school. A woman introduced herself. "Hello, this is Mrs. Wexler. I am a counselor at your daughter's school. I need to talk to you about your daughter." Mrs. Wexler said, "Ren told me today that you are emotionally abusive because you refuse to accommodate her dietary needs." That hit me like a punch. But then Mrs. Wexler paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, more careful. She said, "I do not think that is what is happening. I think Ren is telling me about you because she cannot tell me about someone else." I gripped the phone harder. I said, "What do you mean by that?" Mrs. Wexler said, "I have been talking to Ren for months. The way she talks about food, about her body, about control, it does not sound like a teenager who watched a documentary. It sounds like a teenager who is trying to disappear." She asked me if I would be open to working with a colleague of hers, someone who worked with teenagers. I said yes before she even finished the sentence. She gave me the name, Dr. Petra Akande. I sat in my car in the parking lot. The engine was off. I just sat there. I replayed every single argument I had with Ren over the past 6 months. And sitting in that parking lot, I started hearing something different in all those moments. For 6 months, I had been standing on this hill alone, refusing to give in, wondering if I was crazy. And now a professional had called me and said she heard the same thing I had been hearing. I was not crazy. Something was underneath. Dr. Akande called me 2 days later. Her voice was calm, direct. She said, "I want you to know that I have spoken with Ren twice now. She is resistant, but she is also exhausted. I believe she wants to tell someone something, but she does not have the words yet." I closed my eyes. I said, "Is my daughter okay?" Dr. Akande did not answer right away. Then she said, "No, but I think she will be." That answer broke something open in me. Dr. Akande then asked me to walk her through the bacon situation from the very beginning. So I told her, every month, every argument, every door that got closed in my face. Dr. Akande listened to the whole thing without saying a word. When I finished, there was another one of those pauses. Then she said, "You did not give in." I said, "No." She said, "Why?" I took a breath. I said, "Because if I gave in, I would be telling her the surface problem was the real problem, and I knew it was not." Dr. Akande went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That is the most important thing you have done for your daughter in the past year. Do not stop." I cannot explain what those words did to me. 3 weeks went by. Dr. Akande had now seen Ren 3 times. I did not know what they talked about, but I started noticing small things at home. Ren's bedroom door was open more often. One evening I was sitting on the couch and Ren came downstairs. She walked past me, sat in the chair on the other side of the room, pulled her knees up to her chest, and just sat there for 20 minutes. She did not turn on the television. She did not look at me. But for those 20 minutes, my daughter chose to be near me. Then came Thursday evening. I was doing the dishes after dinner. My phone rang. It was Dr. Akande. She said, "I am calling because there has been a development. Ren has told me what has been happening. She has given me permission to tell you, but she wants to be in the room when I do. She wants to come to your house this Saturday." Then Dr. Akande said something that changed the temperature of the entire conversation. She said, "I need you to prepare yourself. What Ren has told me is not what you are expecting. It is worse." Worse. That word hit me like cold water. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. I said, "Tell me now." Dr. Akande said, "No, Ren needs to be in the room. She needs to see your face when you find out. She needs to know you will not look away." That meant Ren was afraid I would look away. I said, "Okay, Saturday, I will be here." The next 2 days were the longest days of my life. Friday night, I did not sleep. Saturday morning, Ren came downstairs at 9. She was wearing a sweatshirt that was way too big for her. It hung past her hands and past her hips and she looked small inside it. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table in complete silence for 20 minutes. Every few minutes, she would pull the sleeves of her sweatshirt down over her fingers and grip the fabric in her fists. The doorbell rang at 9:20. Ren's head came up fast. I brought Dr. Akande to the kitchen. She walked past me and went straight to Ren. She pulled out the chair right next to her and sat down. And then something happened that I was not ready for. Ren reached for Dr. Akande's hand. She did it immediately, without hesitation, like a little kid reaching for a parent in a parking lot. She just reached out and grabbed this woman's hand and held on. I sat back down in my chair and I stared at their hands together on the table, and something in my chest cracked open. I had not seen Ren reach for anyone's hand in over a year. Dr. Akandi spoke first. She looked at me and her voice was steady. She said, Ren has been working very hard over the past 6 weeks. She has been carrying something that no 17-year-old should have to carry alone. She has given me permission to tell you what it is. Then she turned to Ren. She said, Ren, is that still okay? Ren nodded. One small nod. Dr. Akandi squeezed her hand and looked back at me. She started talking. She was specific. She was clear. She did not soften anything. She said that Mr. Hollis was Ren's biology teacher. She said that Mr. Hollis had been making comments about Ren's body for the past 14 months. She said that he had been keeping Ren after class, alone, repeatedly. She said that he had been touching her shoulders in ways that were not appropriate. She said that he had been using language about how Ren's body was developing that involved comparisons to meat. She said that the veganism was Ren's way of trying to take back control. She said Ren had been trying to make her body into something that Mr. Hollis would stop noticing. She said the bacon in our kitchen had been the trigger because it reminded Ren of the exact language Mr. Hollis had been using about her. Every sentence Dr. Akandi said landed on me like a weight being stacked on my chest. I could feel the air leaving the room. This whole room where I had been cooking bacon for 7 months while my daughter was being hurt by a man who used the language of meat to talk about her body. I sat still. I looked at Ren. She was crying. Her whole face was red and her shoulders were shaking, and she was holding Dr. Akandi's hand with both of hers now, like she was afraid to let go. I did not speak for a long time. I do not know how long. The kitchen was quiet except for Ren crying. I was trying very hard to keep my breathing steady because I did not want Ren to see me fall apart. Right now, she needed me to be solid. Then I stood up. I walked into the kitchen. I opened the freezer. I took out every single package of bacon that was in there. There were 3 of them. I carried them back to the table. I lifted the lid of the trash can next to the counter. I put all 3 packages in the trash. Then I looked at Ren. She was watching me through her tears. It was the first time she had actually looked at me in weeks. I said, this is not about the bacon. I am throwing it out because you do not need a single reminder of what we have been arguing about for 7 months. Not one. Ren's face crumpled and she cried harder, but she did not look away from me. She kept her eyes on my face like she was searching for something, like she was checking to see if I was disgusted or angry at her, or if I was going to look away. I did not look away. Dr. Akande spoke quietly. She said, she has been wanting you to know. She has been wanting you to know for a very long time. I understood. Every argument about bacon, every slammed door, every time she cried at the table. She had been trying to tell me. She had been screaming it at me in the only language she had, and I had heard it. I had not known what it was, but I had heard that something was underneath, and I had refused to let the surface be the answer. I made a decision. Whatever came next, I was not going to look away. Not once. The next morning was Sunday. Dr. Akande drove to our house and picked us up, and the 3 of us went to the police station together. Ren got to the threshold and stopped. She looked at me. Her face was pale and her eyes were wide, and she said, what if they do not believe me? I looked at my daughter standing in that doorway and I said, then we will go to the next person. And the next one. We will not stop until someone does. Ren walked in. We filed the report. Ren spoke for 40 minutes. I sat next to her. I did not interrupt. I did not react. Not on my face, not with my body. Because Ren kept glancing at me. She was checking to see if I was still there. If I was still solid, I was still there. Every single time she looked, I was still there. After the police station, we drove to the school district office. At the end of the form, they put a piece of paper in front of Ren and told her to sign her name. I watched her pick up the pen. Her hand was shaking. While she was writing, I reached over and put my hand on her shoulder. It was the first time I had touched her in I do not know how long. And she did not flinch. She did not pull away. That was the first time she had not flinched when I touched her shoulder in over a year. And standing there in that office, I understood why she used to flinch. I understood whose hand she had been feeling every time someone touched her there. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within a week, the detective called me. She said, your daughter's report opened the door for 5 other families. She should know that. 5 other girls. I told Ren. She sat with that information for a long time. Then she said, I did not know there were others. I said, they did not know about you either. You all thought you were alone. Ren was quiet again. Then she said, we were not alone. Mr. Hollis was arrested 2 weeks after Ren filed her report. Mr. Hollis pled guilty. Mr. Hollis received a 7-year sentence. Dr. Akandi called me afterward and said, it is done. I said, no, it is not done. Ren is still healing. It is not done until she is okay. Dr. Akandi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, you are right, but the man who hurt her is gone. That part is done. 5 months after that kitchen table conversation, Ren came downstairs on a Sunday morning and I was in the kitchen cooking eggs, no bacon, and she sat at the counter and said, you can cook bacon if you want. I do not mind anymore. I looked at her and said, do you want me to? She thought about it for a second and said, no, but I am okay if you do. It does not mean what it used to mean. Ren is still vegan because she said she came to believe in it for real over the past year, and I respect that. She eats dinner with the family again now. Her door is open. She is still in therapy with Dr. Akande, and she is doing the work. I think about those 7 months of arguments and how close I came to giving in when she cried at the table in month 5, and what would have happened if I had. Ren would have stayed silent. Mr. Hollis would have continued. The other 5 girls would still be carrying it alone. The refusal was the parenting. The parenting was the message. The message was, I see you. I see this is not about bacon. I will not let you hide behind bacon. I will wait until you are ready to tell me the real thing. And when you do, I will not look away. Most parents would have given in, and I do not blame them because giving in looks like love. But sometimes not giving in is the harder love. And sometimes the harder love is the one that saves your kid.